When I threw him back, he ran around and stabbed me in the back and cut my spinal cord. When he cut my spinal cord, right away my leg went out because I fell down on the ground. Dude straddles me and he starts stabbing me. My name is Jesse Swally. I joined the Navy in 1980. I did 3 years reserve and 3 years active, so I got out my discharge in 1986. I was born in Watts, California, but I wasn't raised down there. I was raised pretty much in the San Fernando Valley. You know, I had a pretty decent childhood. We were poor because, you know, we got food stamps and free lunches and stuff like that in school, hand-me-downs. But it seemed like a lot of kids had that, so. But I grew up pretty normal. Stepfather, my real dad, was a piece of, you know what. But I had a stepdad and he was pretty cool, but he got abusive. Every once in a while he drank a lot. As I grew up, I did my best. We had chores. There was sometimes people tried to bully me, but I'd handle it. But I wasn't like the toughest kid in school, but that's just how it was with me and most of my friends. We grew up riding skateboards and bicycles, and my skateboarding at age 12 is when I first started skating. It was just fun to do. We had hills where I lived. I was always going up and down the street skating, and you know, and it helped me stay away from my dad because sometimes he was hard to handle. So and my mom too. If you was in the house too long, they'd put you to work or something. So I'd figure I'd just be out skating and biking and stuff like that. Then when I was 13, I got into jogging. Pretty soon I started jogging like 6 miles a day. I did that till I joined the Navy. My dad died 2 days after I turned 18, and I always was told, and everybody was told, when you turn 18, either go in the military, go to college, or go to work. I couldn't find a job. You know, I was looking for a job. I couldn't find one, and my neighbor, next door neighbor Larry, asked me, he goes, "Hey, you want to join the Marines on the buddy program?" And I'm like, okay. So we went down to the Marine recruiter and we took the ASVAB test, I guess, and he didn't do so well. So the Marine recruiter told him, "You need to go back to school and study like English and math." And he told me, he goes, "You got a pretty good score." He goes, "You can join." I knew a couple of guys that joined the Marines, older guys, our neighbors, his brothers actually, and the way they talked, it seemed like you had to be a badass. I wasn't that bad. I mean, I could handle myself, but I felt like I can't be a Marine. There's no way. Not by myself, so I got scared. I didn't think I could handle it, so I said, "I don't know, man." I go, "Let me go." And I took my ASVAB score to the Navy. First, I went to the Air Force. I didn't graduate high school. I had all the credits, but that's a long story about why I didn't. It was more of a moral thing. I got kind of screwed around, so I just quit when I shouldn't have. But anyways, I got the thing. I got the GED in the Navy. But the Air Force wouldn't take me because I didn't have a diploma. But the Navy said they would. My brother was in the Navy, so I figured if he could handle it, I can too. So that's why I went in. But basically, I needed a job, so that's why I went in. Well, my recruiter, I don't really remember talking to him. My brother, my younger brother's a Marine. And the way he talks, it's like the Marine recruiters seem really, really motivated to talk to you and encourage you and get you in. And the Navy guys were cool, but they didn't like give me any promises, or they just told me because of my score, I could go in open contract and just take whatever they give me. They didn't give me any warnings about what I'm to expect or something. They just said, you know, once you're out of boot camp, you'll go do your job, whatever. You know, luckily I got a pretty decent job when I was in. I guess based on your score, you give a cool job compared to a not so cool job. So my job was all right. I guess I did all right on my ASVAB. I can't remember what score it was, but they didn't really encourage, like they just like, oh, if you want to come on in, come on in. If not, then that's the difference. Like with, you know, like I've noticed, like with the Marines and the Army, they're more motivated in pushing and doing stuff. The Navy and Air Force are like, okay, I'm here. I'll do what I got to do to get by. And it's kind of weird. And that's why, like my brother and some people say, I should have joined the Marines. You know, I had fun in the Navy. It was cool. I don't regret it. But I've always wondered what it would have been like if I was in the Marines. In the Navy, I was working on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, the USS Ranger, called the ABH, Aviation Boatswain's Mate Handler. We just moved aircraft from, when they had launches and recoveries, we'd get the airplanes ready. We'd move them around with these things called tractors. They're like little powerful trucks that pull the planes around. We park them, put chains and chocks on them, and then when it's time to launch, break the chains and chocks off them and get them ready, taxi them to the catapults, get them ready to launch, and then when they recover, they come in and recover, and once they recovered, start taxiing them back to wherever, and then we'd park them and get them ready for the next launch. And Navy boot camp was pretty easy for me. We had to go to schooling, which was all right. I mean, I didn't know we was going to do any like writing down and studying and all that, but that was part of the thing. The schooling, the worst part about Navy boot camp for me was you had to eat chow at a certain time, and that was it. I did very well in the exercise because I ran so much in school. I had no problem with running. We didn't run that much though. It was like, I was a little upset because I thought once you got in boot camp, you're just going to be doing push-ups and stuff like that. And it wasn't like that. It's like we was right next to the Marine base next door, and I'd see these guys running in formation, and it looked cool. And in the Navy, every time we ran around this track, it'd be like the fastest guys in the front, the slowest guys in the back. But they told us to encourage people, so I would always be in the back pushing the fat guys, saying, "Come on, you can do it." And a lot of them thanked me because on our final run, only one guy didn't make it. And on our final run, we was doing this run, and if you didn't pass this run, you were going to get held back for 2 weeks. And I was running behind this guy named Rupp, and all the other fat guys was able to make it. And we was coming up to the time limit, and the guy timing us, he goes 10 seconds left, and I said, "Come on, Rupp, let's go." And I just ran as fast as I could because I didn't want to fail the run. I looked back, and he was just like resting like this on his knees, and he failed the run. I was so upset because I'm like, almost every one of us made it. But of course, and the thing is, all these guys are laughing at me. They're saying, "Ha ha, you were on the cross country team in school, always talking about your running. You came in you came in last place." I go, "Fuck you guys, I'm sorry about that." And, I said, I could outrun any one of you guys any day. I'm trying to push these guys. And, but that's a lot of people tease you if they think that because you can do something, you're supposed to be the best at it all the time, no matter what's your reason. Because, I could outrun those guys, but I'm trying to push everybody. That was my Army Marine Corps attitude, thinking, let's do this as a group. But everybody else after that run, all the other guys thanked me for pushing them. Because when we used to run at first, I used to literally like run around the guys as we're running around the track, and I'm like, "Look I'm running circles around you." And it would motivate them. And I had scoliosis when I was a kid, and my back hurt a lot. And I guess because of working out in boot camp, that took away the back pain. And later on my ship, I met a couple of like bodybuilder type guys. They're from California, Jay and Rob. And they always worked out, and they told me the reason my stomach stopped hurt, or my back stopped hurting, because I was working out my stomach. And so Navy boot camp got me into working. Not like I work out a lot, but I work out enough but I don't have any back pains. And when you get older, you do get back pains, according to my friends, but I don't get them because of the working out. That helped me from when I got stabbed. It stopped it from being way worse than it was, and it also motivated me to move more. But while we was in the barrack in boot camp one time, there was this guy, and I don't know what his deal was. His name was Epps. When you had something called no march, no PT, that means like you got some sort of injury, so you can't participate with it. This guy constantly had that. He never went on a run or anything. I don't know if he like super smart. He always got good grades on his tests. So I don't know what his job is going to be once he got out of boot camp, but he never did anything physical. Everybody kind of had a grudge with him. One day on Sundays, it was really relaxed. The company commander, this is nothing like the Marines. The company commander would come in the morning, give us our instructions, and then they have like 2 guys in charge of the company. They were enlisted too. They were in boot camp, but they were like in charge. And on Sundays, you could either relax in the barracks or go to church. Well, a lot of times it was a Catholic church, so I'm like, it wasn't what I wanted, so I didn't go. But this guy Epps, we had to stand watch. When we stand watch, you're supposed to walk around the barracks, just for whatever, you know. This guy decides to take his shoes off. He's really overweight. He's no fun to talk to. He thought because he's so smart, everybody's an idiot. So he goes, I'm gonna take a nap. So he's laying down on this floor. And I'm like, wow, this guy's goofy. And so I took some dental floss and I tied it to one of the racks and I tied it to his big toe while he was sleeping. And then I go, the chief is here. And he stood up and he yanked the dental floss and he pulled it and it cut his toe. And that was the only thing, like the things that I did, like, you know, because I didn't want to get in trouble, but he goes, I'm going to report you. I'm like, go for it. What are you going to tell the chief? You were sleeping on watch. I mean, how are you going to explain I tied dental floss to your toe? So he never said anything about it, but pretty much everybody was just kind of nervous in boot camp, you know. Yeah, when we graduated, because I was always worried, you know, I don't know why I had this fear of thinking, I'm not going to pass, I'm not going to make it, but every time we did something like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Then when graduation day came up, I was like, wow, I'm really graduating, this is cool. And then I was thinking, okay, now where do I go from here? And then of course we had to do our schooling after that. I think schooling was 6 weeks. And that's where we learned about the job that we would be doing. And then after that we went, I think we got 2 weeks off, got sent to our duty station. But yeah, it was really cool graduating because when we graduated, when we first got there, we had to march, we were all kicking each other. But when we graduated, it looked cool. I mean, I couldn't see it from the sidelines because I was marching, but it seemed like everybody knew exactly what to do, and we was all dressed nice and sharp and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty cool. My mom came, my grandfather came to see us, and so that was pretty neat, man. I thought it was awesome. We was flown to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. From there, we had to stay there for like 2 days, and then we took a cruiser for a day out in the ocean, and then they flew us from that by helicopter onto the aircraft carrier, which was out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. They was on a cruise. So when we got there, they was on a cruise, and when you're on a cruise, when the ships are out at sea, they're constantly doing maneuvers, like as if you're in a war. So that's the whole purpose for going on a cruise, so you can practice, so you know what to do in case you are in a war, I guess. So they was always working, and we just got kind of thrown into it, and they told us what our job was real quick. And so our first job was like moving chocks and chains and tying down aircraft that, you know, and as time goes by, you move up to being a tractor driver, crash and salvage, or a director. You kind of got thrown into it really, and you had to learn fast because we was out at sea. And it was cool. It was hard work, but you was always running around. It was cool. It was scary at first because you're around jet exhaust, jet intakes, propellers, helicopters. I mean, and there's all kinds of noise you can't hear. You have to learn sign language kind of to communicate. So it's kind of intimidating at first, and you're kind of confused, but you know, you catch on pretty quick. I mean, if I could do it, most guys could, because I wasn't that bright. But yeah, it was cool. It was a little intimidating at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fun. You know, it sucks working all the long hours, because out at sea you work at least 12 hours a day, just constantly flying. They're constantly flying airplanes. They're landing and taking off, landing and taking off. And I don't know what the pilots were doing, but they was doing whatever they had to do. But our job was, you know, get the airplanes on and off, you know, parked and ready to go for the next launch and stuff. So they'd be all parked along the ship, and when it's time to launch, you have to wear like long sleeve shirts, a cranial with eye goggles, attenuators to keep the noise down, and you got long greens on, steel toe boots. They tell you, everybody on the flight deck, they go, man up for flight ops, and so you have to get all your gear on. If you don't have all your gear on, the guy that's called the air boss, he'll yell at you, and he might even bring you up there. He's got authority over the whole flight deck. Nobody does anything wrong without dealing with. He's like the captain. Even if the captain's on the ship messing or not knowing what's going on, the air boss will call him up there and say, hey, what's going on? Why are you acting like that? And so once you're in your gear, they start, I mean, they say, man up, flight ops are starting, and you just got to start they just start, and then they start starting the airplanes. Like the tractor drivers, they got these things called PTU, a power takeoff unit. and it blows air and it hooks up to the planes and it gets their engine starting. There's a couple of planes that would start on their own, but most of them needed that, and that was part of the job that where I worked, we did that. We also did the chocks and chains, the things that hold the planes in place. We had to remove those so the planes could be moved. And once a plane would start up, they'd get them. They'd have it all planned out in this place called flight deck control, which planes are going to go. You got to go in a certain order so it can get done right. The 2 catapults in the front, and there's 2 that go off to the side. So it's like, pew, 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 pew. It's like they want to launch planes every 2 minutes, no slower than that. And that's part of the reason they practice. But we'd get those planes off into the air, and they'd usually 30 planes, 40 at a time. Planes would go off and do whatever they did, and then they'd come back in for a recovery, come in one at a time, and as soon as they recovered, they'd get them off the cable, take them to the front of the ship, tie them down, and they would just literally like stack them up like this and just pack them in. And then once they packed them all in, because you had to have the landing area, the part that went off to the side, you had to have that clear for the planes to land. Couldn't have anything in there. Once all the planes landed, then all these planes on the front of the bow of the ship, they were all packed in. So our job was to go in and hook up to them with tractors and tow bars, move them off the bow of the ship, and then bring them back to the fantail, which is the back of the ship, and park them into an order to where they can refuel, have their plane captains, the mechanics of the plane, because each plane group of planes like F-14s, A-7s, A-6s, they all had their own group of guys that would work on them. So they'd check out the planes, refuel them, clean them up. The pilots would go down for a debriefing and do whatever, come back up and do it all again. You do that for usually from 5 in the morning, probably to about 10 or 11 at night out at sea. And there's some days where they didn't fly planes for, they'd have a break or whatever. But we had to, on those days, that's when we'd clean up the flight deck, scrub it with fuel and AFFF, which is that foam for fighting fires. I wasn't around. Right before I got on the ship, some guy got his head ran over by an ace. He fell in front of an A7. The wheel on the A7 ran over his head. It killed him. But that was like a month before I got on there. The only thing I saw while I was on there, 2 things I saw. One time a guy, I don't know why I know why he did it. When you fall overboard, it's traumatizing, I guess. And sometimes you can get out of the military for that. So one guy decided he was going to jump off the ship and say he fell. But he messed up by telling everybody that he was going to jump off. So it was at night, and I was on the night crew at that time. And so I guess he jumped off. Nobody saw it, but they just said, "Man overboard." Now, when they call a man overboard, everybody has to go muster to their duty stations. Everybody. And it was in the middle of the night. All these guys from the day crew, they're working like 16 hours a day. They don't want to get up because you got to get up, you got to go muster. You can't go back to sleep till they find out who this is and get him back on the ship. They can't find out who it is until they muster everybody on. There's like 4,000, 5,000 guys on here, so they got to make sure everybody's got their name checked off. So these guys are all mad, so they told on him. They said he was going to jump, so I don't know what happened to him. I never seen him after that, but what happened is when he jumped off, when someone falls off, they always send a helicopter up to go help with the search. Well, this helicopter had something wrong with the rotor, I guess, and it crashed and it went into the water. It went in upside down. So they had to save 7 more guys that were on that helicopter. So the guy got in major trouble for that. But I watched the helicopter crash. I go, wow, it's like a movie. Nobody got hurt on the helicopter, but in an airplane, an A3 that went out and it never came back. It crashed in the ocean. And so, but I didn't see that. That's just, I know there were 7 guys from our ship that didn't make it back. And then another time, I saw we was refueling with another ship, and somehow the ships drifted together and they crashed. And that stopped us from, we had to go to the Philippines to get one of our elevators got messed up. The elevators are bringing the planes up and down from the hangar bay up to the flight deck. So that got messed up. But other than that, I didn't see, every once in a while guys would run into like a missile fin because they're not paying attention and get a cut on their head or something like that. But I never seen anybody get, I've seen a couple people get blown down, like when you're not paying attention. If a plane is like this and you're walking like this and it turns, and they got to they got to give it throttle to make it move. So it's going pushing a lot of air out, and it turns. As it turns, it'll hit you and knock you down. It's happened to me a couple times. You roll a little bit, you get all upset, and everybody's laughing at you because they say, you finally got it, So, but it's not, I've never seen anybody get, run into a propeller. I almost walked in front of an intake once because I wasn't paying attention, but my friend grabbed me and he was kind of laughing at me. He goes, I should have let you go. I wanted to see what would happen, but he was just joking. But still, yeah, you just got to keep your head on your shoulders, and most of the accidents were somebody just like running into a plane because they're not paying attention or something, or like at night. A lot of times they have the chains. It just like it's attached to the plane and it goes down to the flight deck. They call these things called pad eyes. They're just like little welded, looks like a hand like this where you put the chain hooks in, and sometimes it's going across like this and you're walking and your leg goes right here, right on your shin by that chain. It's killer. It's brutal. So I went through the shellback initiation. That was cool. I got my shellback paper at home. It was kind of a fun thing. You get up early in the morning, you got to put your pants on backwards, inside out. You put your underwear on over your pants. You got to crawl on your knees. While some guy who's already been through it, he's called a shellback. You're called a polywog, and he's got like a fire hose, and if you don't do what he says, he whips you with it. Not really hard. It's irritating. It hurts, but it's part of the initiation. And then you're just crawling around on your hands all throughout this ritual, and they make you eat green eggs and ham, grease all in your hair. You got to crawl all over the flight deck. They put you on the elevator. They lower the elevator and they spray you with a fire hose, and that fire hose hurts. They just do all that, and you got to go through this gauntlet of smelly food, and because a lot of time before this happens, all the guys that work in the kitchen save everything. They don't throw anything off the ship. They save everything so it rots, and they put it in this like long tube that you got to crawl through, and you're like, what the hell's it? So you got to do all that, and it takes about 3 or 4 hours, and it's kind of cool because you say, okay, I went through it. I got the certificate. And there were 6 guys when I did it. They didn't go, and the captain of the ship, he's like, because you don't have to do it. He's like, okay, anybody who doesn't want to do it, you got to come up to the flight deck in your dress whites and stand at parade rest while everybody's going through it. And dude, food and whatever's in this stuff is just flying everywhere. And these guys, I mean, their dress whites were just like thrashed. There's no way they were going to clean that stuff up and be able to use that uniform. So they pretty much had to go buy a new uniform. That was their punishment for not going through it. And it's like, I guess it's considered hazing today. Cool. I mean, if I could make it, like I said, I'm not a tough guy. I mean, I'm just like the average dude. If I could make it, pretty much anybody can. And there was guys with arms this big that went through it. They would, it's not that bad. And then you got big old buff guys that go through it, and they kind of like whine a little bit, and you're like, but everybody made it, So it was pretty cool. It's when you cross the equator, I guess it started way back in the day with pirates. It's just a thing to say like you crossed the equator, and somehow they decided to give you some sort of an initiation, and that was just part of the deal. So that was one cool thing about doing the Westpac. It's called the Western Pacific cruises, because you cross the equator and you got the option to do that. So all ships do it. Marines get to go through it if they're on. My first place was the Philippines. That's when they flew us there right out of our school. On that ship took us to a place called Diego Garcia. It's a little island out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. That's where they flew us from there to the carrier. I forgot, they didn't fly us off that one ship. They flew us from that little, it's like a military base. It's owned by the British. That was my first place where I got to like explore. We was only there for a day, and it's a military base, but it was cool. We walked like about a half mile out in the water, and it was only waist deep, and that was kind of cool. I never seen water like that. But then after that, my first place, after we got on our ship, the first place we landed was for Liberty was Thailand. And I thought it was kind of cool. course, at that time, this is the 80s. That's when they just came out with the urine tests and stuff. So a lot of people still smoked. And so I was walking, I was by myself. I didn't know anybody. And I was walking, and this kid comes up and he goes, "Hey, you want some Thai sticks?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, you got and I had a bag because I was planning on staying in a hotel for a day or two. I had time off. He goes, "You got an extra pair of Levi's in there?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'll give you 10 Thai sticks for a pair of Levi's." This kid like 9 or 10 years old. I'm like, "All right." I gave him my Levi's. He gave me the Thai sticks. I went to a hotel. They had a bus that went from Pattaya Beach to Bangkok. I go, "I want to go to Bangkok." I thought about that song by Rush. They say we're on the train to Bangkok. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went to Bangkok, got this hotel, had all these Thai sticks. I smoked some in the room. I'm like, now what do I do? I went down, and this dude in a taxi goes, "Hey, you looking for some girls?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll take you." So he took me to this place where he had all these girls in a window. And I'm like, "I don't know, man." I go, I'm by myself. I didn't know what to do. I go, take me back to my hotel. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I was nervous about all the girls. They warn you about all these STDs in boot camp and your school. So I'm like, take me back to my hotel, and I'll think about this later. So I went back to the hotel. I smoked some weed, and then I thought I fell asleep. And the next day, when I went to that with the taxi guy, I had like $360. I didn't want to carry it around. So I took the $360 and I stuffed it underneath this chair that they had in the hotel room. The lining was loose. So I put the money in there because I was thinking the person cleaning might see it. Next day, Kate got up, and the lady goes, "Room service." And I go, "Oh." And she goes, "You either got to check out or go pay for another day." I'm like, "You know what? I'll just go back to the ship." So I got on this bus, went back to the ship. It was like a 2-hour ride. Got back to the ship. I was going from the shore to the ship on these little boats because there was no place for the ship to dock, so we had to take these boats. And I was halfway through on the boat, and I realized I left my $360 and all the Thai sticks in the room. And I couldn't remember the name of the hotel or anything because it was all in their writing and stuff. And I'm like, so I don't know what, that was my first negative experience, but a rich sailor, I had all this money from being out at sea, so it wasn't that big of a loss. No, I mean, and in the Philippines, I messed around a couple of times, but I seen so many dudes coming back with STDs and the clap, and it's pretty painful, I guess. I mean, the way they cried, I mean, big old dudes were crying like babies, and I'm like, and I had a few experiences, and it was kind of cool. Before I went overseas, a couple of dudes, we was in our school, me and these dudes were walking down in San Diego, and when I was in school, I wasn't one of those guys that had girlfriends. I just didn't have a girlfriend. I wanted to have one, but I couldn't get one. So, and then when I was in boot camp and everything, all these guys were talking about how they got laid and stuff, and I'm feeling awkward. I'm like, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm like, that's fucked up. So I felt awkward. These dudes were walking in San Diego. They go, "Let's get a hooker." I'm like, "No." And they go, "No. What are you, gay?" And I'm like, "No, no." And I'm like, they're like pressuring me. So I go, "All right, we'll get a hooker." So we got this. We're walking in San Diego, and seen this blonde girl. She's kind of heavy, and she's like, "I'll do each one of you for $30." And we're like, okay. And so I told my friends, I go, "Only if I go first." And so we got to this hotel that she had. She's got this little back room where we and her went while my friends sat on the living room part waiting for me. So I went in there and I start doing my thing, and I'm like, she smells like a locker room. She stinks. I'm like a bunch of men. I'm like, why does she smell like men? And then it clicked. I'm like, I know why. I hop up, I run out, I'm like, oh, and I wash myself real quick, and my friends are laughing and go, "Man, that was fast, you're a virgin." So that was a bad experience, but I was so worried about getting an STD, which I never did. And then a couple times in the Philippines, I messed around, but it's like they kind of like hit on me. I didn't go looking for it. And I messed around with them, but I still thought, not that it wasn't immoral, I just thought there's a chance I could catch something. And so I just started hanging around married dudes and religious dudes, because all the other guys are like, just want to get drunk and go get laid and all the time. And it's just intimidating thinking that you can get something like that. So I messed around a couple times, but I just like, I'll wait till I, find a girlfriend or something. I'm not gonna try to just, every time you're in the Philippines, you meet somebody, you know, because there was dudes that would get a different girl every night. And there's the ones that was always in the clap line. I used to like the bars because they had bars that had country music, rock and roll music, disco, whatever you like. They had these bands that would play live, and they would sound like the music you were used to from America, except the singer, you could hear his accent, but the music was right on. You could hear Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, whatever. It sounded pretty good. So I thought it was fun going to these clubs, drinking a little bit of mojo, which is really powerful alcohol, gets you messed up pretty quick. I would do that. My thing was go to those clubs, drink a little, and watch these bands play. But while you're in these clubs, they got these girls, all of them, they're wearing bikinis. Their job is to go around trying to get you to buy drinks. The more drinks you buy, the better they get paid. And they're willing to go home with you. If you buy them enough drinks, at the end of the night, they tally it up and say, you got this much drinks, you can take her home. But they'd come and they'd be sitting on your lap. They'd come up and sit on your lap and they go, will you buy me a drink? You're like, no, not right now. Because, you know, I'd been there a few times. So I'm like, I'm not, you know, at first it's fun. You're like, oh, how these hot girls are sitting on my lap. But after a while, it gets annoying. So I'm here to just watch the music and have a good time. I'm here with my friends. So this girl comes by and she kept trying to sit on my lap. And I go, I'm not interested. And she goes, what are you, a Benny boy? Which means, are you gay? And I thought, yeah. I told her yeah, because I figured if I told her yeah, she'd leave me alone. So I'm sitting there, and my friend, she got up and she stormed off. And my friends are looking at me like, what the fuck did you say? And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, smash, this beer bottle smashed against the wall by us. And then like 3 or 4 more bottles smashed against the wall. And we're looking, and there's a table with like 4 dudes and like 6 girls. And they're just picking stuff up off their table, throwing them at us. And I'm like, whoa. So my friends were like, we got to get out of here. It was upstairs. So we ran down the stairs. It was like a movie. As we're running down, we could hear these bottles smashing behind us against the wall. So my friend goes, what the hell did you do? I go, I told her I was a Benny boy. He goes, why'd you do that? I go, so she would leave me alone. He goes, that sucks. He goes, because now we can't go back in that bar. I go, why? He goes, because they said you're a Benny boy. That means you're competition for those women, for other dudes. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And so that was that was just a mistake. So I didn't know. I mean, I just thought I was being slick, but and one time I had this one girl that I met. I told her I'd be her boyfriend, promised her something so I could get laid. And I messed around with her. It was one of my friends. He had a girlfriend. It was her sister. So I promised her, yeah, I'll do this and that. Well, the next day, I'm a typical sailor. I'm like, yeah, that was fun, but it's over. So I'm messing around, and I'm walking down the street with this other girl, and that girl saw her. So they started arguing. And then one of my friends, he's like, dude, don't ever do that again. He goes, sometimes these girls will get mad. He'll stab you with a butterfly knife and you won't even know it. It's best just not to mess around, So that's why I used to hang around some of the married dudes or the religious dudes, because they was out trying to just have a good time. But sometimes I get caught up doing something stupid. Like one time we had a division party. It was like 10 miles out of town, and me and my friend, we was in their bar drinking some mojo, and he goes, let's get ready to go to the party. I go, okay. So we got these motorcycles. They got these motorcycles, these little sidecars on them. We paid them. We're going to pay you to take us to this party. They go, okay. So we're cruising down the road side by side, and the road gets a fork and the bikes separate. So I'm like, what the hell? So I'm telling my guy, I'm like, hey, you went the wrong way. And he's like, and he's smiling. And I'm like, hey, you went the wrong way, you idiot. And I'm cussing the guy out thinking he's stupid. I'm like, what the hell? I go, stop the bike. And he's like, and he's just like ignoring me. I go, this guy sucks. So as we're going, I just jumped off the bike and I started running down the road because we were going fast. I didn't fall. And I'm like, well, this sucks. So he kept going. So I turned around and started walking back down the road. And where it came back together, I see my friend, he was walking down the road too. He goes, what happened? I go, my guy went the wrong way. What an idiot. And he goes, no, he was going to take you to some back alley where guys were waiting and they were going to rob you. I go, oh. And I go, I go, how'd you know? He goes, that's what they do. He goes, my guy was going to the right way, but they had it planned so they can jack you up. They might have even killed you. I don't know, but they was definitely going to rob you. I go, oh. I go, how did you get your guy to stop? He goes, I started, because I told him, I go, my guy wouldn't stop. And he goes, well, I started choking my guy and told him he better stop because his guy was in on it too. His guy was like, wasn't going to stop for him because he knew he was wise. And then he goes, how'd you get your guy to stop? I go, I didn't. I go, I just jumped off his sidecar and ran. He goes, you didn't fall? And I go, no. He goes, how come? I go, I guess because when I was a kid, I got used to jumping off boards. You know, you go bam, bam, you know, and that's where I tell people I almost got shanghaied. So I don't know where he was going to take me, but I'm lucky. I guess I'm lucky I jumped off. But other than that, I never had any trouble. I liked the Philippines. It was cool because it was cheap. You get drunk easy. They had cheap food. And I messed around like, I think 3 times over there, but I was always, each time I always felt like I'm blessed not to have caught anything. And so I wasn't, you know, just not into, you know, there was a lot of guys, most guys after they go and experience it a couple times, they're like, okay, it's been there, done that type thing. But and there's a few guys that are like just total losers, I guess, back in the day, and they just had to have it every time. So, you know, and that's like in most militaries. Most of the ports I went to, they were, like you'd hear stories of certain things happening, but it wasn't with me. Like some say, oh, this guy went through this. The police are looking for this, you know, like one guy got raped in Australia. His girl, some girl he met, talked him into tying him up, and then some dude came out and did something to him. They was investigating that. But most of the things that happened in other countries, it was something you'd hear about. I mean, I've like, most of the times, like with myself, the worst thing that happened with me is like, I have to fight somebody because of some situation. And it's just, I was in the, you know, I just, not that I was looking for fights, but you know, sometimes people would start something and then you have to just defend yourself. Other than that, I mean, there was really nothing major that stood out. Most of my situations were in San Diego. Sometimes I got couple of times I got in fights in San Diego over somebody trying to mess up my friend's car. One time we were partying in my friend's car. We borrowed it and some guy was acting like he's gonna throw up, and he's like wheezy. I go, hey dude, if you're gonna throw up, get out of the car because we borrowed this car. He's like, I'll kick your butt. And I go, whatever. And I'm sitting in the driver's seat and he gets out and he runs around. And he's running around towards my side. I'm like, oh shoot, he's gonna hit me while I'm sitting down. So I got out real fast and he came at me and I punched him and I knocked him out. I didn't, you know, I mean, I fought a lot in school, but I didn't know I could knock someone out like that, and I did. And then another time I seen 3 guys beating up on one of my friends. But another one, me and my friend were going up on this brow to, you know, check onto the ship, and our friend was on the pier. And while he was down there, I'm not sure, but we looked and there's 3 guys beating up on it. So I ran down. I'm like, what the heck? And the one guy was fighting one guy on the ground and 2 guys were beating on him. So the biggest guy, and he was over there wailing on my friend, so I just ran up and kicked him in the ribs. And he stood up and he's really tall and he goes, you want to mess with me? Next thing you know, I'm on the ground. I'm like, oh no, he's beating me up. But what happened is when he said that, I punched him. When I punched him, I knocked him out. And the 2 shore patrol guys, they happened to see what was going on. And so they saw me hit him and saw him fall. So they tackled me. I was hitchhiking with this guy. We pull up. He was stationed on the base. We're on our carrier, so we have to go on the base to get to our carrier. They searched his car. They found the weed. They copied down our ID information because they couldn't keep it. They confiscated his because he was on the base. They gave us back our ID, but they copied the information. We went on our ship. Division officer calls me and my friend down. And he says, oh, we got a report that you guys are caught with some marijuana. We're like, no. And he goes, well, he told us a story. We go, no, here's what happened. We were hitchhiking. This guy picked us up. We don't even know his name. And he goes, well, that doesn't make sense to me. And we're, well, what do you want us to do? And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, if you can drop some names of some people in our division that smoke, we can all just bury this under the rug. And we're like, I don't know anybody. He goes, you got to know somebody. We're like, no. And he goes, okay, then you're going to go to see the captain for failure to report. And we're like, what? And so they sent us to the captain. We went and saw the captain. He goes, were you in a car and the guy had marijuana? We go, yes, sir. And he goes, why didn't you report it? And we're like, we didn't know, sir. We were hitchhiking. He goes, hitchhiking's against Navy regulations. And so we're like, sorry, well, we won't do it again. He goes, well, you still didn't report the guy. So he gave us 45 days extra military duty restriction and busted us in rate. And I thought that was pretty shitty, but you know, it is what it is. So then another time I told the chief to F off because I didn't like working with him. When I did that, we were pulling into Australia. We'd been out at sea for 102 days and we were going to Australia. And after Australia, we was going to work our way back to the United States. But I knew that if I got, you know, when I told him to fuck off, he reported me. So I had to go see the captain for that. And the captain, I said, what do you want, 45 days restriction? And if I took the 45 days, I'd be on the ship the whole time we got back to San Diego. So it'd be a long time. He goes, or I'll give you 3 days bread and water. So I took the bread and water. It was only 3 days, but I get to brag about being on bread and water for 3 days. Well, yeah, so I got an honorable discharge, so and that's why I got to do some of the, you know, the Navy games and all that, or the veterans games. And because I got in trouble a couple of times, I kept thinking, if I stayed in, something's gonna happen. I don't want to stay in and get kicked out. So I thought, you know, it's best to just get out before I get in too much trouble for, you know, because I just like I said, with the weed thing, that was on my record. Then with the chief, that was on my record. And if I messed up any more, I'm thinking they're going to throw me out, you know. So I just decided to get out. And plus, it takes a certain type of person to want to stay in. Most people go in and think, okay, this is cool. I've been there, done that. I'm going to get out and get a job. And that's what I was thinking too. So that's what I did. You know, I got out and eventually started working in different places. And well, I got out in '83 for active duty, but I still had the reserve thing for '86, but I didn't have to, I still worked and everything like that. So in '83, I got, you know, I jumped around from one job to another. You know, each time I'd find a job, I'd find something better, so I'd move up. And then I got the job driving a tow truck. I worked there for like 6 years. When I used to drive a tow truck, I used to ride my skateboard to work because it was downhill. And then I'd either get a ride by somebody or I'd take the bus or I'd skate home. I mean, if it was nice weather, I'd skate home. On rainy days, I'd drive to work. People always thought that was weird. They go, I didn't know you had a car. I'm like, yeah, I just don't drive that much. Plus, I was driving a tow truck all day. But I got the job at the tow truck place. I lost my job at the tow truck place because I was doing meth. And it just, my attitude changed. It got me fired because I was just being aggressive with people. So I was in Santa Barbara with my friend. He's a Marine. And he got me the job working with him. We was doing retaining walls for cement work and stuff. And we was up in Santa Barbara doing a job there. And we got, after work one day, we decided to go to this place. It was in Carpinteria, 1991. And it was in Carpinteria. We went to this place. He's like, I want to drink. I go, I want to eat. And so we're looking for a place. We see this place said burgers and beer. We're like, okay. So we go there and we start drinking some beers and we ordered our burgers and he's almost done with his food, but he didn't want to finish it. And I was paying for everything. So I said, he goes, I'm going to go have a cigarette. And I go, all right. So I finished my food and I pay for it and I come out of the restaurant. When I come out of the restaurant, I seen him squaring up like this with a guy. And the other guy's, the other guy has a metal pipe, you know, like to jack up a car with. And he's like this. And there's another guy off to the side over here. So as soon as I open the door, I'm like probably 20 feet away. And I hear my friend say, what are you going to do? Hit me with that pipe. And right when he did, that guy came down and swung. And my friend, he punched the guy right in the face. And it sounded like when you hit a cue ball, crack. And it was a loud crack. And in my head, I'm thinking, was that crack from Victor getting hit with that pipe or from that guy getting punched? Because they both connected at the same time. And when they did, the other guy over here, he ran in and it's dark. And so he ran in and I see him go like this to my friend Victor. And I'm like, well, this sucks. this guy's jumping in. It's already, his friend's already got a metal pipe. So let me go pull this guy away. I should have just beat him up real quick, but I just thought, get away, let him fight. So I grabbed him and I threw him back. When I threw him back, he ran around and stabbed me in the back and cut my spinal cord. When he cut my spinal cord, right away my leg went out because it was paralyzed. So I fell down on the ground. The dude straddles me and he starts stabbing me more with his knife. But now, here's what's weird. When he hit me in the back, it didn't feel like a knife. It felt like somebody punched me. And in my mind, I took jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and I took some martial arts on the ship with one of my friends. So I've been in I learned a few things about some martial arts, and I learned things about pressure points. So I'm thinking, this guy punched me in the back, and somehow he hit a pressure point to make me fall down. He didn't hit me hard, but somehow I'm on the ground. And I'm trying to figure out in my head, as I'm trying to get up, my leg's not working. What did he do? Then he jumped on me and he starts stabbing me more under the arm. And I'm like this, holding him. I'm like, stop, let it go. You won, it's over. And he's just stabbing me. And each time he stabbed me, I'm getting weaker. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this guy knows some badass martial arts, because every time he punches me, I'm getting weak. I thought he's gonna punch me until he knocked me out. But then after the fourth time he hit me with a knife, and I'm still thinking was getting punched, I just look over and the pipe that his friend was using was by my head. So I grabbed it and I went, bam, bam, and I hit him twice in the head. And he took off running, and his friend took off running, and my friend's staggering around, and he's got blood coming down his side like this, just like a little trickle. And I'm like, hey, Victor, I think they had a knife. You're bleeding. And he goes, you're bleeding too. And I go, what? And I look down and there's just blood all over me. How did Victor get stabbed and he's just got a little blood, but I got his blood all over me? That doesn't make sense. I still didn't know I was stabbed. And then I said, I can't get up. And he tried to help me up. I fell down and I'm laying on the side of the road. Someone, by then the whole people came out of this restaurant and stuff, and they're like, don't move. We called the ambulance, and I'm sitting on the ground waiting, and I hear this, what the hell is that? I'm looking around, I don't see anybody, and this girl comes walking by, she has a cigarette, and I go, hey man, can I have a hit off your cigarette? She goes, yeah, take this. And I went, his smoke comes out my side, because he punctured my lung with the knife. And then they took me to the hospital. By then I was jumping around saying, it hurts, something's wrong, I don't know. I was just crying like a baby, I guess, just yelling, please put me out, give me some anesthetic. And they're like, we can't give you anything, you got food in you, you got food and drink in you, so we can't do anything. I'm like, oh. And I don't know how long I was complaining, but this dude comes up, he goes, look at this. And he had an x-ray of my back. He goes, what's that? I go, looks like a spine. He goes, yeah, you see this shadow? I go, yeah. And he goes, what's that look like? I go, a knife? He goes, yeah, it's in your back. He goes, stop moving and we'll take it out. And that's all I remember. Then I woke up the next day. They pulled the knife blade because the knife blade broke off. And they told me luckily it broke off because if it was long, they did puncture my lung, but they said it probably would have killed me getting stabbed that many times under here because there's a lot of vital places under there. But when I woke up, the doctor told me, you've been stabbed, you're paralyzed, and you'll never walk again. And first thing I said is, because I'm 28, and he goes, first thing I said is, I'm like, if I can't walk, how am I going to ride a skateboard? He looks up and looks at my mom and my girlfriend. He goes, what? And they both go, oh yeah, he rides a skateboard. Because this is 91, and most people at 28 didn't ride skateboards that much. I mean, unless like Jay Adams and those kinds. But I mean, even when I drove a tow truck, I'd come skating into work, and people were like, one time this guy goes, hey, how old are you? I'm like, 26. He goes, don't you think it's time to stop skateboarding? I'm like, no, I don't want to look like you, because he's all big and stuff. But it was just something I always did. So I had the skateboard in my car the day I got stabbed. I always carried a skateboard just in case I wanted to go skate somewhere. So, but that was the thing. That's how I got stabbed. About 2 weeks later, my friend, he died because his stab wound, it pierced his bowels, and he got all infected and caught pneumonia and died. Victor Cole. Yeah, he got out. I think he got out about a year before me. Yeah, he was, I think he got out as an E4. He did pretty good in the Marines, and he was a pretty badass dude. I mean, him and my brothers, we used to fuck around and fight, just play fighting and stuff. And because of my job driving a tow truck, I couldn't hang around my brothers and him that often because I had different hours and I worked weekends. But they'd go off and hang around and party. They got in a few fights with people, and he was one of the guys you'd want on your side if you're fighting 4 or 5 guys. It's like he could handle himself pretty good too. So he was, and that's the thing. When what happened is he told me, I go, what happened before he died? I'm like, what happened? He goes, those guys wanted to rob me. And I started laughing because when we was in the restaurant in Carpinteria, I was buying his food and his beer because he only had $3 on him. I'm like, why didn't you just give him your money? He goes, fuck that. He's a Marine. He's like, you ain't taking my shit for nothing. I'll kick your ass. And these guys were smaller than us, and that's my mom told him. He goes, I don't understand. Those guys were small. And my mom's like, dude, they had weapons. And my mom goes, you're a Marine. Didn't they ever teach you don't ever underestimate your enemy? He goes, yeah. But he just thought the one guy had the pipe, and he's like, gonna knock him out real quick. But he didn't know the other guy was going to stab him, and I didn't know. Like I said, I thought the guy knew martial arts. And I asked the doctor, I go, how come when I got stabbed, I go, he was punching me or stabbing me. I thought he was punching me. I kept getting weaker with each time. And the doctor goes, well, every time you get stabbed, you're losing more blood. He goes, the faster you lose blood, the faster you go unconscious. And he goes, they said if I'd lost another half pint, I probably would have died from blood loss. And that made sense to me because, it just blew me away how fast I was actually going out. I was scared. I was thinking, this guy's going to punch me and knock me out. Then I don't know what he's going to do. But I was getting stabbed. So I was going through the therapy, trying to learn how to deal with my situation. And he was off. He went to the emergency, and they stitched him up, and they told him to take certain medications. So he was at home with his wife, trying to deal with his situation. But then one day, and I heard about it, I never got to see him after that because I was still doing my thing, and he was at home, and I guess while she was gone for the day, he just passed out in the bedroom and he just died, and they said he wasn't taking his medication like he should have been. So I don't know if he was depressed because of the whole situation. He was bummed because of what happened with me. He was bummed out because his home life wasn't that great, and he was bummed because he wasn't working. So I don't know. We always wondered, did he not take his medication properly because he just said fuck this, or he just didn't care. I don't know. But she came home and he was just laying on the ground and blood was coming out, and they said he caught pneumonia, but he also never went and told anybody. Also, he's a typical guy. Guys don't try to push when they're hurt. They don't like to go, oh, look at me, I need help. They and I think that's what happened. He just thought he could handle it. Well, after I got stabbed, my daughter was born like 3 months after I was stabbed. At that time, my ex and we still was dabbling in meth, but we kind of had to slow down because we had a daughter. She couldn't handle it. She was stressed out. She had a lot of mental situations going on, dealing with things. So after about 1.5 years of trying to take care of our daughter, and I was still learning how to walk with my brace and stuff because, I was in the wheelchair, but I learned how to walk with my brace. And I don't know, you want me to tell how I got to learn to be with the B of the brace or no? But when I was stabbed in the back, it cut my spinal cord at the T12 level. Now usually at the T12 level, that takes out everything under this certain part of your waist, both your legs and everything. For some reason, if you look at my spine and the knife went in like this, it didn't go all the way across. So I got lucky. So it kind of went like that. And that's why only one leg is paralyzed. But when I was in the hospital, they just knew that the level of my injury was more than likely going to keep me in a wheelchair. So I was in the wheelchair, learning doing my therapy, learning how to transfer from my bed to my wheelchair. They'd take me to this room. teach me exercises to like, they said, even though your leg's messed up, they had the therapist working my leg back and forth just in case, because you got to keep it moving as much as you can. And this leg was working, so I was doing exercise with this leg. But when I transferred from my bed to my wheelchair one time, the therapist, they don't want to help you. They want you to do it all as much as you can on your own, because they're not going to be there forever. I was going from my bed to my wheelchair, and I let go of my bed for just a split second to grab onto the wheelchair, and I noticed I was all my weight was on my right leg. I thought, wow, I was holding myself up with my right leg. So after the therapy session was over, I got back into the bed. When no one was looking, I scooted out of bed and I stood up on my right leg, and I'm standing there. My left leg's just kind of like hanging there, but I was balancing on my right leg, and I yelled out, I go, hey, look at me. And all the therapists look and they go, oh my God. And they come running up and they grab me and they go, don't do that. You're going to fall. You're going to fall. I'm like, I go, it's kind of cool. I got them all excited, and I thought it was funny how they reacted. So I did that like, 5, 6, 7 times. Every time they'd have a shift change. This went on for like a couple days. They'd have a shift change every 8 hours, and each time they had a new crew come in, I would do that just for fun. And then finally they came in with a couple of guys wearing suits, and they said, show these guys what you can do, and I did. And they said, well, maybe you can walk with a leg brace and some arm crutches. And I go, okay. So they went and made me a brace. I started learning how to walk with these, like between these bars. They were like 8 feet long. I'd hold onto the bars and step on this leg and kind of limp over. I had to throw my leg out because it was a solid brace. It was straight down. There was no hinges on it. So I was learning how to do that. And they gave me these arm crutches. I couldn't use regular crutches because I was still damaged under here, so they gave me these arm crutches. And I was learning to walk with the arm crutches and my brace. And it took a lot. It was a lot of pain. And I'm feeling pain right now, actually. They told me it's going to be painful and slow. I started walking like 10 feet, every couple hours. I'd get out of my bed and put my brace on and try to walk. And then pretty soon I was walking out of the hospital and walking across this one thing like a length of a half a football field. It just looked like the length of a half a football field. I don't know exactly how far it was, but I just know that I went and I walked from one side to another, and I sat down on this bench and I rested, and then I came back. And the people in the hospital are like, where were you at? And I go, I went over there. They go, you walked all the way over there? And I go, yeah. And they go, you've been gone an hour and a half. So I figure it took me 45 minutes to walk that far, because I also had to come back. So I guess that's how slow I was walking. But they said, get used to a wheelchair because it's going to be slow and painful. It's easier to use a chair. But I thought, hey, if I can move without the chair, I'm going to do it. So I just kept on. It took me 3 years to learn to walk. And as time went by, I eventually got these leg braces with hinges. I get them like every 3 years. I get it replaced because my leg's getting smaller and smaller. But it's been like, and they told me it'd be painful, and within 10 or 15 years, I'd probably get back in a chair. I've been out, using my brace for 33 years. And then like when I was 20 years into doing it, that's when I learned I could skate on my knees. And that happened on accident too. Like I said, I got the brace just by messing around. I didn't know I was going to be out of the chair. So one day I was in my house up in Palmdale. There's a bunch of guys around there. They're like 20-something. They're all riding skateboards and stuff. I'm like, so I'd go out there and watch them. I go, you guys are cool, because I used to skate. I had skateboards in my house, and I did graphics on skateboards, and I show them my skateboards, and I go, that's pretty cool. And they smoked weed. I smoked. So I'm thinking, they're like buddies. I'm like, I think I was 48 when I first started skating. Again, on my knees, but I was like 48. And this is 2011, so we're talking, and we go buy some weed down in the valley, and they'd go skating at skate parks sometimes. So I'm like, let me go with you, we'll smoke, and I'll watch you skate. So we're down in Venice one day, and they're skating, so I'm walking up and down the boardwalk in Venice, and I seen this flyer, and it says, help break a world record. And it said, we're going to attempt to have the most skateboarders in a skateboard parade. And it's like a 2-mile walk, 2.1 mile thing from Venice Beach to Venice High School. And I'm like, wow, I could walk that, because, you know, when I was using my brace, I was walking as much as I could, as far as I could each day. Pretty soon I was walking miles, and I could walk pretty much as fast as the average walker walks now. But I'm thinking, I could walk 2 miles. I know, I'll walk this route with my skateboard showing off my design. And I go, I'll sign I said, I'm gonna do that. So I signed my friends up, 2 of my friends, I signed my brother up, my daughter and her boyfriend and myself. I said, we're gonna do this parade. And they go, okay, go bring your skateboards. You know, I had a skateboard for my daughter and everything. So we're all getting ready. We're gonna do this thing, try to break this world record. So like 2 weeks before the event started, I started really reading all the rules. And I'm reading, it goes, in order to qualify, you have to be on a skateboard pushing. I'm like, fuck, I can't do that. My friend Jesse, he was cool with me. He ended up being my filmer after I started skating. But anyways, he goes, maybe if you rode on your knees and pushed like the monkey does. I'm like, what? And so he had his board with, I go, let me see. So I got on my knees on his board in my driveway, and I started pushing like this, and I was going. I'm like, hey, I'm onto something here. I go, this is cool. So I went ahead and got my board. The board I had when I got stabbed, I still had that board. I got on that one, and I started going up and down my street for practice. I go, I got 2 weeks to be able to do 2 miles. So I would do like a quarter mile a day, thinking if I could do a quarter mile, I could do 2 miles. We got to this event. When I was pushing, I got some garden gloves, and I go, okay, I'm gonna push with garden gloves, pushing up and down my street, and it worked pretty good. Then when we got to Venice for the event, they picked this worst street. You ride a skateboard, so you know what it's like when you're riding on a rough road. Sometimes you push and your board just goes and then it stops because it's so rough. Well, that's how this street was. So we're trying to push, and I'm pushing like this, and my gloves kept falling off. So I was clenching them like this and pushing them under my knuckles, and I was pushing and pushing, and it was working. But I was thinking, man, if I had some sort of shoe thing on my hand, I could push like this and it would work. So we managed to do it. We broke the world record. We all got our bands and everything. So we did that. But when I got to the end, I was tired. I was like, wow, that's some good cardio. And I was thinking about those things. So I went home that day, and I cut the tips off of some tennis shoes, and I glued some gloves in there, and I put them on my hands. And ever since then, that's what I used to push with. So, you know, you see me on my board, how I push in the skate parks. But basically before I started skating in parks, I was just pushing up and down the street because I was thinking this is good cardio. And I started pushing up and down the street I got up to like 1 and 2 miles a day, and I was just skating around on my board for exercise, because I used to be a cross country runner. I was so bummed that I couldn't work out anymore like I used to. So my skateboard was my thing. But as time went by, I started accidentally going off curbs on accident, and finally learned how to go off curbs without falling off my board, and going up curbs. And pretty soon I went to the skate parks with my friends just to bomb hills and shit. Right on a longboard, and I would sit and I would hold this leg like this and have my other leg out in front of me and just bomb hills before I started doing skate parks, because that's how I could go fast. But then once I learned the skate parks, one thing led to another. A couple people reached out to me and asked me for advice, like disabled kids and stuff. I gave them advice, and then pretty soon someone invited me to San Diego to do a marathon down around Fiesta Island for Parkinson's awareness. You pay like, I think, $90 to get in. You skate around the island 6 times. I never did finish it. I did it 5 times. And each time I only did 22 miles because it's a timed run, and I could never get past 22 miles. But I did that 6 times, and then I just started doing all these runs for different charities, you know, police cadets, wounded warriors once, Parkinson's, cancer research, kids with autism, and things just started happening. I started doing all these charity runs. You know, you have to pay to get in them, but you get a ribbon and a shirt and get to say how cool you are for helping out, you know, and it's just fun to see if I can do it, because I mean, most of my runs were like 5, 10, or 15K, but I did the Long Beach and Huntington half marathons. I did those 5 runs in San Diego, 22 miles each. And I did this thing called Wings for Life World Run for spinal cord research. That's a run that's run all around the world simultaneously. And the first time they did it, they had it in Santa Clarita. I signed up for that. I did 16 miles. And that run's cool. You start off running, it's for runners. And I said, can I skate in it? And they go, yeah. And I told them my situation. So I skated in it. And I did 16 miles. And what you do is you start off running. And a half hour after you start off, a chase car follows the route. And it goes 7 miles an hour. And each mile, it speeds up until it catches you. And then it marks your time. I did 16 miles. And when I did it, they was impressed with how far I went. So they did a documentary on me. Red Bull did. They were supposed to do the documentary on the first and second place runners from around the world, and the first and second place, or the first place woman and man around the world, and the first place woman and man in America, because that's where it started. But because they was impressed with my story, they did the interview with, or the documentary on me instead of the first place runner, and he was really cool. Me and him were friends and everything, but he was kind of bummed that they didn't do the documentary on him. Instead, they did it on me. But it was cool because they was out. They had a film crew at my house. So yeah, I did that, and I got to be on Animal Planet. That's how I got my service dog. And I was on PBS one time where I live. They got these kids that have autism. They get with a skate group every year, and they bring these kids with autism out with a couple of pro skaters, some local skate shops. And they let me in too because they think I'm cool. So they say, you go there and you skate around with these kids with autism for a couple hours, and they get a kick out of it, and it's fun. They do it once a year. It's called A-Skate. And one day I took my friend Jesse. I said, hey, let's go do this A-Skate thing. It's with kids with autism. He goes, all right. It was right there in our local town. So we're doing it. And when they do it, they have so many kids there, they break them up into groups. There's 3 groups. So while one group is skating, the other 2 groups are kicking back, watching, hanging out, associating with each other and everything. After the thing was done, I asked my friend Jesse, I go, what'd you think about that? He goes, that was pretty cool, but I thought we were going to be skating all day in the park. I'm like, nah, dude, we're here for the kids. He goes, oh. And so he's like, it was okay. So the next year, I go, hey, want to go do the A-Skate thing again? He goes, nah, it wasn't really, not my thing. I go, okay. So I went, and I went there, and there was a couple of pro skaters that I knew and stuff. We're all skating around, and PBS is there filming. And they're filming. And so I'm like, they made us sign a paper saying, can we put your name? Oh, yeah, no problem. So the next day, I'm getting all these messages on Facebook. They're like, hey, we saw you on PBS, you and Emil Murray and so. I'm like, what? And I look, and they're like, yeah, they did a special on PBS for kids with autism, and they go pro skaters, and they go pro skater Jesse is disabled. I'm like, no way. My other friend Jesse called me. He goes, hey man, how come you didn't tell me PBS was going to be doing a special? I'm like, I didn't know. I go, you vain bastard. You should have went anyways. He goes, I would have went if I'd have known. I go, yeah, well, that's what you get. So, but that's, it's just, I mean, and I used to skate. I mean, I'm still trying to skate, but I think it's finally taken its toll. It's been 13 years on my knee. I skated before. When I started doing long distance runs, I was always skating 1 to 3 miles a day for over 10 years. And when I practiced for like runs, I knew I'd be doing at least a 5K and then maybe as far as 20 miles. So I'd get up to 6 miles a day for like 2 months before any event. And so I figured it out. I skated over 4,500 miles on my knees just to practice and do all these runs. So it's kind of cool. I get to say all that. And I've been in papers a few times. On my 30th anniversary, I skated a half marathon where I live. I marked it out and they put me in the paper. That's cool. I'm in a skateboard and surfers magazine. One guy made a coloring book, Adaptive Skaters, and he's got my caricature in there. It's pretty cool. So it's pretty neat. I got to do a lot of things. And my Instagram name is I Can't Stand Skating. And I got that because I was skating in a park one day and some kids are going, how come you're skating on your knees? And I go, because I can't stand skating. And that's just what it was. So that was pretty cool. And then that's how I met Zach. He hit me up for something. He said, if you could come to Santa Ana, we got a OC ramps and it's all military guys skating. I'm like, all right, cool. So I went down there and I got to, hang out with them guys. And that was pretty cool because I thought it's pretty neat. You know, I didn't know there were that many military skaters out there. I knew guys in the military skated, but I didn't know they had all those skills like that. I know before I started skating, my brother said he's noticed a change for the better, because I used to seem like more of like an asshole. I think everybody has that. I do have my bad days. I mean, a couple months ago, I was at the spinal cord meeting, which I'm going to go to one today too. Everybody has spinal cord injuries meets once a month, and this one guy, he was freshly paralyzed, and he goes to this meeting and he's seeing how everybody's talking and having a good time and stuff. And he goes, I get these pains and they hurt. And we're all like, yeah, that's how it is with all of us. We get those too. And he goes, well, you guys don't seem so sad about it. He goes, how long does it take before you get used to it? We're like, you don't. It's just, you just deal with it. And my friend told him, he goes, oh, well, you guys all seem upbeat. And we're like, my friend said, well, dude, check it out. He goes, here's the thing. He goes, having a spinal cord injury sucks. Every day it sucks. You got to get up. Like, you know, like with me, I got to put my brace on. I got to pull myself up to a chair. And it's a hassle. You know, got to limp to the bathroom, take a shower. You got to take this off. You got to worry about slipping. I like to sit in my bathtub while the shower is pouring on me because I don't want to slip and fall. But the guy said, every day it sucks. Every day it's painful. But it's just, it is what it is. You can sit and cry about it. It's not going to help. So go out and do as much as you can, as long as you can. And that's just what, and that's what I've always thought. I'm like, I want to stay as strong as I can for as long as I can. Because that thought in my head when they said I'll have 15 years before I get back in the chair, I don't want to be back in the chair. And I was doing the wheelchair veterans games in the chair because that's what they said was required. And that was cool. And that's another good thing that happened is this lady that were pickleball partners. And pickleball was one of the events that we did in the veterans games. Of course, we got our butt kicked when we went over there. She's a little heavy. And she said before she was doing pickleball, she wasn't doing anything. And she's got a way worse injury than me. She goes, all I was doing was sitting at home doing nothing. And when we did the pickleball, I kind of like, this is all right. But then I seen how much joy it brought her to do pickleball. So I thought, well, if it's gonna get her out of the house, I'll do it with her. So me and her do that like twice a week. We go to Glendale and we're part of a pickleball club, and it's pretty cool. I have a wheelchair at home, and I'm glad that I got it because I just got it from the VA. They gave it to me. And I'm thinking maybe, you know, when I get it where I can't use my brace, I'll at least have a wheelchair, because they're like $4,000 or $5,000. You know, they're not cheap. You know, I mean, you could get those hospital wheelchair, but they're no good. They don't work. Can't do anything in them. Because me and my friend are doing pickleball, the VA is going to get us some sports chairs, and they're really cool. They're like $8,000, but they're cool for doing different events, you know. But at least I know that lady's out doing something a couple times a week, because, you know, I told people before, sitting at home is no fun. You know, a lot of people turn to drugs, alcohol, depression, whatever. People commit suicide because they're so depressed from sitting at home. And not just people with disabilities, but everybody, you know. But people with disabilities, they got to deal with their situation and sit at home, and it's boring. Part of the reason why I like doing what I'm doing too is because when I first started skating, I had kids reaching out to me with disabilities, their parents saying, hey, we saw you, can you come and help us do this, show our kid this? I'm like, okay. I've traveled to San Diego, Sacramento, just showing kids. I got them skateboards because I know a few pro skaters. I tell them my story. They're like, oh, I'll help you. And they give me some stuff, and I get some kids on skateboards. And I've had stand-up people. I was actually sponsored I've been sponsored by Nike, and actually Pharmacy Skateboards is still one of my sponsors. Gravity was one of my sponsors. Gracias LA, Tracker Trucks, all these people are sponsoring me, giving me all this free stuff. And this one guy where I used to buy weed, I don't smoke anymore, but when I would tell him my situation. He was amazed because he's a fitness guy. I mean, this dude was ripped. He was from Russia, but he had this weed shop, and he was impressed with me doing these marathons in San Diego, and he was actually helping me finance my trips. And he said because of me, he started getting into jogging. Next thing you know, a couple of years after he started jogging, he started doing marathons and stuff. And he told me it's because of you that I'm doing this. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. When you can impress a weightlifter to get into more fitness, that's pretty cool. But so yeah, I think I got a song you might have heard before. One time I tried to impress a lady with my harmonica and I blew it. Oh. When I was 16 and my mom and dad said, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, a harmonica. They got me one, and I just used to play it. Give you a little instruction book. It teaches you sing songs like Home on the Range, Top of Old Smoky and stuff. And then I went to the music store and bought a book, and it shows you more songs. And then when I was in the Navy, I took it with me and just kept practicing and just listened to different songs. And pretty soon you could play by ear and it was something. When I was a kid, it was kind of kept me preoccupied because, like I said, my dad was a little abusive sometimes, and I figure it's like ADD kind of, or ADHD, whatever you call it, where you attention deficit disorder, whatever, or what's the one where you're constantly trying to do something over and over? OCD, yeah. But that was one of the things I just practiced to kind of keep myself preoccupied, and next thing you know, I mean, I just started playing, and I was just doing cool stuff like that, and then just like. But yeah, it's just something I just picked up and started getting pretty good at, I guess, and it's kind of fun. And I play, like, whenever I meet someone from the military, depending on which one, if it's the Air Force, Navy, or Marines, or Army, I play it for them. And when I was at that thing in Orange County, they actually, it's on, I don't have the recording on my phone anymore, but it's on Instagram and Facebook of me playing the national anthem before the event started. And all these dudes are like standing and saluting, and it was pretty cool. And they all cheered. Yeah, I was playing all the different militaries when except I don't know Space Force and the Coast Guard one. I played it a few times, but it's hard to remember. It's just like, not to hate on the Coast Guard, but it's just not. It's kind of hard to catch them. And I'm pretty good with I'm really good with the Army, the Marines, and the Navy one. The Air Force I'm pretty good at, but it's not that catchy of a tune. Of course, I had to learn the Navy one because I was in the Navy. But I think the Army one's cool. And the Marine one is my favorite. It's just the way it goes. But the Army one's pretty cool too. But I always play it for anybody in the military, and they're like, that's kind of cool. If somebody sees this and they got a situation going on, try to stay positive. Try to move if you can. If you can only partially move as much as you can for as long as you can. I mean, it's rough, but it's like, I'm 62. This happened when I was 28. I just came back from Louisiana. I got 5 medals for powerlifting, shot put, javelin, discus, and adaptive fitness. My heart rate is like 60 beats per minute. I think my blood pressure, last time I checked, was I think it was at 130/70, I think. So it's not too bad. And that's the thing, if you can try to stay as healthy as you can for as long as you can, because when you get old, whether you're disabled or not, your body keeps you from doing things. But yeah, just stay positive.